Hello. What's the most encouraging herb? Obviously, it's the encouragement. Ha ha ha. All right, here we go. So last lesson, we were looking at the sum of an AP, an arithmetic progression. Today, we're going to look at the sum of a GP, which means we're taking a look at something with a common what? Something with a common ratio times slash divide. Okay, now these formulas here are provided on your reference sheet. And I've just kind of, I think I've maybe changed slightly the way that it's written on your reference sheet, or maybe that's exactly how it is. I don't remember. Now, the reason that we have two formulas is it depends on whether our common ratio is kind of increasing or it makes our series decrease. Okay, get smaller and smaller. So in general here, the way I like to think about it is if your common ratio is greater than one, you're going to increase. So I kind of want to, it makes sense for me to go ratio take away one. Now, if it was the other way around and your ratio is smaller than one or the absolute value, so in other words, that's a fancy way to say if r is in between negative one and one. So any number that in between that little section, the numbers get smaller and smaller, like say, for example, half. That would fit in there. The numbers get smaller and smaller. I would use this second formula. And just to note here, the only difference is Rn take away one or one take away Rn, okay, depending on that. If you need to, pause it there, wrap your head around that. Yeah, so for example, this one here is like, let's not use green. This top one here is if your common ratio is either greater than one or your common ratio is less than negative one. So kind of on the outsides. Whereas if you've got a ratio in between -1 and 1, use the one below. Okay, both are written there for you, but yes, you kind of need to know which one to use. It'll kind of help your math be a little bit cleaner. Okay, now let's do this. Find the sum of the first 8 terms. In other words, sum of the first 8 terms, we're looking for S8. Okay, now we've got some formulas. Now we can see here, can you see that your common ratio here is just timesing by 2? If you really wanted to test it, you can see that that's 6 over 3 is the same thing as 12 over 6. They all equal to 2. And so because my ratio here is greater than 2, I'm going to stick with the first formula. Okay. And so again, S8 is going to be A, and I'll write it down. Sn equals to A, R to the n minus 1, all over R to the n. Is it R minus 1? I think it's just R minus 1. Yep, R minus 1. So again, S8 equals to A. A represents your first term. My first term is 3. Bracket. Common ratio is 2 to the power of n, which is in this case 8. Take away 1, all over 2 take away 1. And this leaves us with, let's do that as a nice number, 3 times 2 to the 8 minus 1. Thanks for bearing with me, fam. That would be approximately 765. So that means if I add the first 8 terms of this series, they all add up to 765. Okay, now the next series, slightly different. I can see here that my common ratio is going to be 64 on 128, which is the same as 32 on 64. We can see this one is we're halving each time. So I know for this one, the Sn that I'm going to use is the other one. So A bracket 1 minus R to the n, all over 1 minus R. That's going to be that. And I want to find the first 8 terms. So let's go S8 equals to A, which is your first term, 128, multiplied by 1 minus R to the n. So your R we said was half. 1 take away half to the power of 8. And then all of that is over 1 minus R, 1 take away a half. Okay, so for this one here, do your best to 1 to 8 times, put the whole thing in. And you should get, I'm hoping, something like 255, and that sounds about right. Okay, because your numbers are getting smaller and smaller. We'll go into more detail about what happens as we continue on. That's called a limiting series, next lesson. But hope that makes sense. It's just a lot of this is remembering which formula to use. Remember, these ones here are for GPs with common ratios. Hope that helps. Catch you guys in the next one. All right, bye.